So, if I had to start property sourcing completely from scratch, no investors, no contacts, and no brand, this is exactly what I'll do. In this video, I want to break down step by step how I'll build a property sourcing business in 2025. Now, there's so many people who talk about property sourcing online. And me, myself, for most of you who know my journey, I've been sourcing since the age of 17. So get your pens out, get your papers out. It's going to be very, very badly packed. So for those who don't know, what is property sourcing and why is it a useful skill in 2025? Now, as you've seen in one of my previous videos about the best businesses to start, property sourcing acts as that middleman business. A lot of people think that to get wealth, you have to create something from scratch. But I believe placing yourself in the flow of money opportunities. And as we use in a space such as property, this is the industry that once you perfect your knowledge in, this career will last you forever. Now, one thing that I've learned in life is that you get paid for the problems that you solve. And as you know, there's a lot of people who are looking to buy properties out there, but not many people have the knowledge, time, and skill to actually find property. So positioning yourself as a property sourcer is something that will always be needed. It's something that the rich and the elites will always use. They use people because they want to leverage their time. You can see yourself making 5 figures every single month by following a proven system, which I'm going to outline today. So I'm going to break this video into key elements. Number 1 is the mindset. Who do you have to become when it comes to property sourcing? The second part is how to get investors. The third part is how to get deals. Fourth part is systemizing and scaling. So make sure you stay tuned. So the first step is the mindset. When it comes to property, you got to realize that you're playing in a field with long-term people and it's a long-term game. So every single transaction that you do and every person that you interact with, you've got to always have the end goal in mind. I understand that what you're building isn't no get-rich-quick scheme. You're actually in this for the long game. So treat every single business deal like it is that. Now, on top of this, you've got to be resilient. There's so many times in property, deals fall through. And if you're the type of person that if a deal falls through, you're going to give up, then this industry isn't for you. You've got to understand to fail forward. Whenever there's an issue, you've got to come up with a solution, and that way you can see yourself progressing each step of your journey. Now, a lot of people tend to ask me, Denzel, do I need to have my business registered? Do I need to have a logo and a website? And this isn't mandatory, although it's very useful because you can build yourself a brand. I always advise just getting started and then the rest will come later. Now, before we get into actually finding clients, you've got to understand that this is a regulated industry. So it's very important for you to now get compliance. Now, there's 5 main things that you'll need. You need a company registered. You need to be registered to an anti-money laundering scheme. You need to be registered to a property registry scheme. You'll need to have business insurance and you need to have data protection. All these things are very, very crucial when sourcing. That way you're compliant. So now at the next stage of your journey, a lot of people are asking me, do you either get investors first or deals first? Now, I always recommend investors because a deal isn't a deal unless you've got a criteria. What might be a deal for someone is a rubbish deal for someone else. So the next step in the journey is to get your investors. Now, as you've probably seen in one of my previous videos, I identified 7 different ways in which you can get investors, which you can just literally click here to watch after the video. But in the meantime, I'm going to briefly summarize them now. As I mentioned earlier, property is a people's game. So people buy from people. So it's very important that you build yourself a brand where people will come into you on a regular basis as you're the go-to person for that deal in that type of area. Now, what I recommend a lot of people doing is to update all your profiles on social media. So if you're, for example, using LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram for some of your outreach, make sure you have a professional photo, a clear bio, and everything that you need when it comes to identifying as the go-to person. So for example, your bio might be like experienced property deal sourcer in Birmingham or property deal sourcer specializing in HMOs in London, for example. In terms of finding clients, you have different methods, right? As mentioned, you have some of the organic methods such as LinkedIn outreach, Facebook groups, going to networking events. You have the paid traffic such as Google ads, Facebook ads, and you have also working with people through referrals, partnerships, etc. Now, although you can generate leads through various different traffic streams, one of the biggest hacks that I learned when starting my journey was to have everything documented. So I always recommend you can start off with an Excel spreadsheet, then when you have more capital, invest into a CRM system where you have the investor's name, email, number, criteria, and some other important information about them to help you get you started. Now, the reason this is so important is because there's only so much that we can manage in our head. If everything's down and tracked, you can now start targeting them through building out your own email list or WhatsApp group, which I'll go on to a little bit later. But once you get these investors, it's all about getting on the phone with them, having a conversation, understanding their current situation, where they're looking to get to, and setting expectations as to what you can provide a service for them. It's crucial to identify with them what are the next steps for working with you, just that they are going to be as efficient as possible, because what you don't want is an investor wasting your time. So what I tend to do right now is to get deposits from investors, or even sometimes to charge my sourcing fee up front if I'm working with the higher end clients, because they know that I am a trusted service. However, when starting out, the best thing you can probably do is get a terms and conditions signed, start the search, and then again, when you guys want to proceed with the deal, they can pay you, which again, we'll talk about a little bit later in the video. So now on to finding deals. Now, a big hack about finding deals is to build a pipeline. I've had so many deals where I might have reached out to the landlords in January and the deal completed in May. And that's because people need to build trust. Because think about it. If someone's got a very expensive asset and you're proposing something where you're going to rent it out or you're going to buy it from them, they're going to be very skeptical. And it's normal, right? But a lot of people think that if someone says no today, it means no forever. Always build that pipeline. So what I do and what I encourage my mentees to do is we have like a system that they can actually use and a CRM to store all of the landlords, agents, and investors. And you can follow up with them every so often. So once you follow up with them regularly and check in on them, these people now know you, like you, and trust you. And that is the key to any deal. So one of the things that my first mentor taught me was don't just find deals or find people. And that really stuck with me. Why? Because a lot of people are just here on Rightmove and Zoopla, which do work, trying to find a deal. But what you got to realize is you're competing with hundreds of thousands of people. But what you can do is build a relationship, individual landlords, individual agents, individual developers. And from that, you can now get potential deals on your doorstep. You know, the said agents and landlords that I speak to, that I didn't have to reach out to them, but they're always calling me saying, Denzel, I've got a deal for you. I'm positioning it to you before I put it into the market. And that just comes from relationships. You know, I've had people who have called up one agent and the agent said, you know what, we haven't got any deals for you, or we're going to do company lets. And I might have called that same agent and they've given me the deal. Why? Because they like me and know me and trust me. So one thing I want you guys to understand is how can you now build your brand in a way where deals will start flowing to you, because you are a deal sourcer. So you want to be in the flow of deals. You want to be the flow of investors and you just put them two together. That's where you build out your system. Now, another really big hack when it comes to finding deals is working with co-sources. You know, as I mentioned earlier, you want to know about 5 key sources in the area. Why? Because let's say you have now 10 investors and you've got 5 key sources. That's multiple deals that can pass to investors. And again, let's say you're competing on 2 or 3 a week, that is a lot of deals sold. So with a lot of my members in DJ Peace Academy, they always do deals with each other. In fact, you've actually got a designated chat where they're regularly doing deals. And this is why the mentees are sourcing deals, you know, every single week with each other, because they've understood their strengths. Some people are better at deals, some people are better at investors, and they put the two together and get the deal solved. Now, one thing that's important about having a deal is by doing your due diligence. A lot of people, where they go wrong is by not inspecting the deal enough. As you know right now, there's a lot more scammers in the property space. There's false agents, false landlords, and you really want to make sure that not only are you protected, but also your investor. So let's say it's a purchase property, it's very important to use something called a land registry check, where you can now search up the title deeds to actually see if the owner of the property is who they say they are. And when it comes to rentals, you can do the similar thing and also do more inspections on the estate agency or the company that's actually running this property. I don't want any of you guys to find an amazing property, say it's your investor, and then you find out it's not actually the owner of the property, because you'll be the person responsible for mis-selling that deal to the investor. So the next part of the process is called closing the deals. Now, it's all good having the deal in the theory, but how you actually get to close it and get it over the line. So most people think that finding a property is automatically a deal. And secondly, most people think that finding now a deal will automatically mean the keys. And this is where you're wrong. So firstly, not all properties is a deal. Now, as I've mentioned in previous videos, you want to make sure that the property that you find aligns with your strategy. Whether it's a rent-to-rent deal or a below market value deal, you want to make sure that the numbers stack. As people say, don't buy based off emotions, but buy based on logic. Don't just source a deal because you want to get a deal or complete, but make sure it's an actual deal that you'll take on yourself. So you don't get paid for finding deals, you get paid for closing them. That's why investors often use sources to find and close a property deal, because it actually requires skill to get this deal over the line. So number 1, improve your positioning. As I mentioned, you want to be known as the go-to person for what you're doing. So if you're not already on social media, start today. Whether it's your TikTok, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, really become that recognizable face for your area and for your patch. That way, if landlords or agents do see you, they're going to know you, like you, and trust you just for your social profile. It's so important to build this reputation. Attend events, speak to people, because again, the referral business is undefeated. Next, rehearse your pitch. Now, one thing I encourage my mentees to do is, let's say you're focusing on deals in London, practice calling agents or landlords in a random area such as Newcastle. The reason why is because you're going to now get the repetition in. You're going to now understand what will now make a landlord say yes and the agent say no. So really rehearsing your script and practicing different areas will allow you to gain that confidence when it comes down to your main area and patch. The third thing is to ask really good questions. Now, a lot of people, when they're calling investors or if they're calling landlords or agents, are just asking generic questions that everyone's asking. But try and actually ask open-ended questions that get them thinking. Really try and understand them from an emotional perspective, because again, sales is all about emotions, it's about feelings, it's about understanding. So if you can really create an empathy with them, you can now get a deal over the line. And you can now use that to your advantage when it comes to selling a potential opportunity with them. And lastly, master the follow-up. Someone say no today doesn't mean a no forever. So really focus on how you can actually follow up with them. Whether it's a landlord, whether it's an agent, or whether it's an investor, always follow up. Build your CRM, build your credibility, because you're one step closer from getting your deal sourced. So in summary, finding property deals doesn't have to be hard. You just need a proven system in place that you now, number one, know what makes a good deal. Number two, you have on-market and off-market deals coming on autopilot. Number three, you know how to analyze them. And number four, you can now put an effective offer forward. Because again, speed matters everything. You acting with speed can actually save you 10, 20, 30% off the asking price, as long as you know what makes a good deal. Now, once the offer has been accepted, it's about completing a referencing process, or in the case of a purchase, it's the conveyancing process. And again, this really depends. Some sources take fees before, some sources take fees during, and some sources take fees at the end. And it's really up to you, you know. I normally hit my fees up front as a bespoke service. But again, there's nothing wrong with taking fees after, as long as everything is in writing. Now onto the systems and scaling. Now, I would say this, your first deal is your hardest. And then from there, it's a lot easier for you to scale and to repeat the process. So get used to doing these deals. Now, as mentioned earlier, although I want you to start off by sourcing a certain deal in a certain area, as you do more and more deals, you can gradually expand. So for example, let's say like myself was doing rent-to-rent deals in Nottingham, you now might also do rent-to-rent and buy-to-let deals in Nottingham, and you're gradually expanding your portfolio base. And that way you're going to now attract more clients. Or you might expand by area. You might just stay with rent-to-rents, or instead of just doing Nottingham, you might now do Nottingham and Birmingham. Or you might just cover the East Midlands, and you now might be that go-to source for that. It's all about testing the market and understanding what works. As discussed earlier, it's very important to treat this like a business and not a side hustle. And the thing that creates a good business is effective systems. You can use various CRMs to get your investors stored, agents stored, and your deals stored. And what you want to do is start creating campaigns. So for example, let's say it's through your emails and through your investors, you might now create an investor list. You might send out, weekly reminders of opportunities or market updates. And every now and again, you might now source a property deal and put it on your list. Or what a lot of people are tending to do is create WhatsApp communities. Again, these are all effective ways where you can actually have all your investors into one place, and you can now get one deal and send that out to a lot of people. Systems build everything. Now, long-term, as you're scaling, you now want to start hiring people on a contracted basis. You might now hire junior sources to replicate what you're doing and to allow you to expand into different markets. So for example, I remember that when I was in Nottingham, I got someone to source deals for me in Birmingham. Then as I moved to London, I now got someone to start doing deals for me in Nottingham. It's all about using your resources and using your network very effectively. And that's why I encourage a lot of my mentees, especially, to go to regular networking events and to meet a lot of property people, because that's going to now be the people that are going to build your business. Websites, logos, all of these things are important. But I always feel like your personal brand is the most effective thing. If you can build a property personal brand, no one necessarily will look at your logo or your website. It is a good benefit. It's a good addition. It's often a point of reference when it comes to speaking to landlords and to agents, but you don't have to worry about spending thousands of pounds on the website before you get started. I always say, get started, because that's when you get the most learning done and you see the most progress. As you get more capital, you can now reinvest it into your logo, your branding, and your website. Now, overall, I think property sourcing is a very good strategy for you to use to get the time, financial, and location freedom. Because what you can now do from this is build out a lot of capital and either take your own units or save enough money to now do your flips and your own BRR. So it's all about getting the knowledge and expertise, and from that you're making capital and you're putting the two together. To do this from a job, you'd have to wait years and years just to save up a deposit from a house. For a property sourcing, all it takes is maybe 8 to 10 deals sourced, and you now have a deposit for a house. And that's how you can now build your portfolio long term, which many of my mentees are doing as well. Now, I know this video was just a rough roadmap of how you can get started. There's a lot more things that you need to know, such as the scripts, what is it to say, various methods to find deals, various methods to find investors, how to get offers accepted, and all of these things, which I won't go through in this YouTube video. But if you would like the blueprint process that not only I've used, but also my mentees to gain financial freedom, all you need to do is click the link below and book in a call with one of my team, and we'll map out the roadmap for you to get your time, financial, and location freedom from property sourcer. So I hope this video was useful, and if you know anyone else who benefit from property sourcing, just like, comment, and subscribe.